On this week's episode of The Square, I, not Brandon Carmichael, talk with three men who have no business walking around free in society. I'm so thrilled to be here today, subbing in for our fearless leader, Brandon Carmichael, whose name is actually Michael Carmichael. Go figure. My name is Adam Flaa. I'm a Viking. Sitting across from me is Brandon Carmichael, John Higgs, and Ludo Michaud. And we're going to talk today a little bit about our group that we call collectively the MediaLab. So, this is never going to work.
Hey, can I interrupt? It's Michaud. There's no odd.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Michaud.
All right, Ludo, French-Canadian.
What's the middle name?
William.
Yeah.
Okay, this is pretty much how the show is going to go. I apologize in advance to the audience. So I'll start with a simple question directed to you, John. Do you like this gig?
It's pretty sweet.
No, that wasn't the question. Do you like your job?
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
That wasn't the question. Do you like being the principal of the MediaLab?
You're really coming out with just like fastballs
Some
right out of the
fastballs,
gate.
aren't you? It's like you didn't know you were getting into 60 minutes here, did you?
Yeah.
Mike
So
is
let's see.
so
I just
far away.
celebrated 25 years, so yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay, all right.
Good
What
times.
kind of cash you make after 25 years?
I can tell you, I started at 24K. Yeah,
Man, that's
5-year bachelor degree,
you made a bad
and that
deal.
was a pretty good offer. I had some 18s in the bunch. So
I got to tell you, if you're only getting like a cost of living increase, you're doing very poorly for 25 years.
well, do the math at 25. It actually adds up.
Okay, all right. So you're making what, like 56
Exactly.
now or something?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You know, to each their own, huh?
Yeah.
Why don't we get started with a little bit of the history of the lab? How did the lab get started?
Me? You want,
Yeah, that's to you, John.
You were the only one here at the beginning.
So fair enough.
This is why this isn't going to work.
So started with the firm in '96, and we were using design tools. At the time, it was MicroStation to do design work. I was working on the rental car center out at DFW, and then somebody on one of the other teams sent I think it's a 4-page memorandum just wanting to buy new software. So from that, they did a demonstration of what 2 different pieces of software can do, and then decided in good Corgan fashion we needed a committee to go and study this to decide what we actually want to do with 3D and how we want to kind of do that through the firm. So there were 4 of us that made that up: David Gunderson, Dave Rice, myself, and Chuck Blackford, who Chuck is actually here still as well.
I know Chuck.
25 years, for him as well. And we presented back to the firm that particularly back in that time, you really needed to be specialized to learn 3D. So it was going to be difficult to be an architect and learn all the things that you needed to know about 3D to do that. So we said, hey, you should have a few people that specialized in this, and that's their full-time gig, and they can support all the teams and all the staff. And so we proposed and pitched. At the time, it was CM Squared, which I told you earlier today, which was pretty terrible
Tell us
name,
what that stood for.
So Corgan Multimedia.
And we got from Corgan Multimedia with 2 M's to CM Squared.
Yeah, CM Squared, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty big jump there. So we presented that back to the principals and to Jack Corgan and the management committee at the time, and they said, that's a great idea. We're not going to do that. So what we'll do instead is we'll have a lab like you have in school where everyone can go use the computers and softwares within the firm, and then we'll have some people that support the lab. So hence the name MediaLab. So we did that for about a day, and everyone just came straight to us and said, hey, we don't have time, we're really busy, can you just do the images for us? And it was at the time, it was just me and Dave Rice, and so we would, of course, say, yeah, how many images do you need and when do you need them? The answer was always like 10 yesterday. And so
that part hasn't changed.
No,
in 25
no.
years.
Yeah, there's
same
definitely
story.
been some consistencies from the start. And so we just started cranking through tons and tons of images and animation. And we took over that little room, and that became our render farm. to use those machines. And then it literally probably within six to 9 months, it became what we really thought. So we it was probably me and Dave for over a year. And then we started growing that group. And so there was like 6 of us that were really kind of just cranking kind of images and animations out for the firm as a whole. So
you really went on for quite a while there, and I kind of fell asleep
toned out,
about halfway through there.
Yeah, cool.
But no, when you say it, around 6 to 9 months, y'all it became what you thought it would be, or what you, I guess, maybe had dreamed of it being. What did it start as? I mean, did it start as just a disaster?
It did start as a lab. Like we named we spent probably about $50K, which at the time was 2 years of my salary, which we've already identified.
Yeah, just over or just under 1 year of your salary now.
Yeah, exactly. So we spent a lot of money on software and hardware to get the machines, because the machines that the people had at their desktop at the time just weren't going to cut it. Like, it just, you weren't going to get it done on that.
You do a render in 1 month.
Yeah. I mean, literally, I was getting, RAM smuggled to me at night from the IT department so that I could render something out. And even once we got all this stuff started, literally one of my favorite stories is I was working, there was construction going on, and we were on the 3rd floor, and it was me and one other person. And I was rendering a video out in Premiere, and literally I hear somebody behind me go, "Hey, are you locked up?" And then I hear 3 or 4 other people go, "Hey, I'm locked up. Are you locked up?" So I just power the machine off. And then the head of IT rings my phone about 5 minutes later. He's like, "Hey, John, what you doing?" I was like, "Nothing, I'm just sitting here." He's like, "Cool, what were you doing 5 minutes ago?" So literally the infrastructure at the time, and it was pretty sophisticated, but you could take it down by rendering out a video in Premiere. And so it's evolved, obviously, since that. But no, that vision of really having people that really specialize in it. I mean, Ludo's been in the industry forever and can speak to kind of that knowledge of specialization that you really needed. And even back in the day, you just had to do all sorts of tips and tricks and cheats to make an image look right, because the computer, to actually calculate it properly, would have taken weeks to do. So
the technical term is problem solver.
Okay, I'm going to just blow right past that, because that was full of an air of conceit that I don't even want to address right now. But John does bring up at least one good point in all of those musings. We do have 2 other people sitting here, so why don't we get into that real quick. First, we'll introduce Michael Brandon Carmichael, if I have that right.
You do.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about your time prior to coming to Corgan MediaLab?
I just went to college and had no idea what I was going to do. I'm sure no one else has had that issue. And thought about a bunch of different things. I thought about doing computer science and fell asleep in my first C++ class. And the professor was not happy with that.
It was Pascal for me. But,
and thought about going into Christian ministry. And then I took one video course as a gen ed requirement. And something just clicked. I loved it. I loved the storytelling and the visual aspect of it. And the next semester, the professor needed a TA, and he was like, "You have half a semester of experience. You'd be great." And I've not looked back since then. I've had the opportunity to work in a lot of different environments with film and commercials, and none of it compares to, without being a shameless plug, some of the storytelling I've got to do over the last 10 years. But that's a very short, hopefully poignant description of where I've been.
It definitely wasn't poignant, but it was short.
How did the heart surgeon father feel about that career choice?
Yeah, it was, I have 5 brothers and sisters, all younger than me, and there would have been a perfect environment for him to be like, "Hey, don't you want to do something when you're gonna, actually make some money?" And I told him communications degree, and he was like, "Well," as I remember this vividly, "as long as you do your best, I support you." And to this day, he has held true to that. I still don't know if he knows exactly what I do, but he has always been very supportive.
That's funny, because I remember when I told one of my professors in school that I wanted to go into some form of motion pictures, and he said, "That's great. Have you told your parents you're going to be broke the rest of your life?"
That's true.
That was fun. I actually started here making $17K, so a little bit less than John.
There you go.
Yeah, except that was in 2016, so
It actually
might need
probably
to bump
evens
that
out.
up.
Yeah.
And then, so let's move on. We don't need to introduce anybody else. Just kidding, Ludo.
Wow.
This is
It's a
Ludo.
great start.
Ludo Michaud.
Perfect.
William.
Can you say Ludovic now?
Ludovic Michaud.
There you go.
He's French Canadian.
Très bien.
Ludo hails from Canada, but he's been here stealing cars and playing American hockey since like 1995, 6, somewhere in there. And he's got a rich tapestry of. Now let's cut that. He's got colorful experience and an even more colorful mouth. Please tell us about where you come from, Ludo.
Let me take that one for him.
Do you want to
I'm
take
sorry.
it or do you want me to take
No,
it?
you go ahead and take
Okay,
that
Let me tell
Ludo,
you
go
about
ahead and
Ludo's
shut
life.
up. Brandon, go ahead.
Actually, you go ahead.
Okay,
No,
John.
You know what? Ludo is probably the best person
All
to
right.
answer this question.
This was our attempt at jokes. Ludo,
It
please.
failed, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
Most of
Weak,
them.
weak,
did.
yeah. Short, right? So I'll
No,
start
you know
it.
what? I'm
Poignant.
gonna give you
Remember,
some. I'm gonna give you
poignant.
some leeway.
You give me some leeway
Yeah,
on this.
I'm gonna give you a little leash.
Technically, I went full circle. Around 10th grade, I wanted to become an architect, and I studied towards that. Go to college. In college, I did pure science, and after 11 class in one semester, and almost burning out and barely sleeping 2 hours and a half per day, I decided to switch to human nature science. What is it in French, in English?
Human sciences.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, art.
Oh, that's not.
Art
That's
is what we
yeah,
call that.
art. We call it.
Art. So anyway,
Boy, that was
Art history.
that was confusing.
So anyway, we're back in 92 or 91, 92. I'm doing art now, and I see Jurassic Park and Terminator 2. And I had a good friend that went to one of the first CG school, and I said, you know what, I should give it a shot. So I went there, and now we're in 96. I'm graduating. I started Softimage, working full-time for a software company, and doing 3D software, which is now dead, unfortunately, but back in the days it was very...
He just said that before we said it. We were going to
Yeah.
remind him
Yeah,
that they
yeah,
killed
yeah,
that
yeah.
software.
I wanted to...
We're a very
Save that
supportive bunch for sure.
So 5 years in, and now we're 2000 something, early 2001. I decided, you know what, it's time for me to go in production, so I moved to Texas.
Where all the productions really happen.
Yeah.
Where all the
Not
production-
LA
yeah.
or New York.
Yeah.
Texas.
Texas, yes.
Yeah, if I could jump in real quick, you thought I need to find somewhere where there's production. Hollywood doesn't have much of that. New York doesn't either. I'm going to go to Dallas.
Well, Hollywood I didn't like it. I lived there for 3 months during my time at Softimage, and I didn't like it. Hollywood was not my...
Okay.
And New York was too stressed out. Now I was already stressed out, so I didn't need more stress.
Wait, you feel like you're a high stress
No,
individual?
I'm not a high stress person. I'm over
Okay.
stressed out.
All right.
So with that in mind,
That really pulls the curtain
The
back.
2.5 hours sleep is still the same as college, so I don't know what. Yeah,
I didn't
nothing's
lose that, I didn't
changed.
lose that part. But so anyway, Texas sounded like a great place. It was hot. It was always hot. You know, even during winter, people were relaxed or seemed to be relaxed anyway, and they had the accent, so my accent would blend in just right.
I think we speak slow enough down here that he felt like he could probably understand us.
So I got to stop you again. You feel like the French accent is similar to the Texas accent.
At the time.
It would blend in at the time.
All right, that's.
We've all made some good choices in our life.
Well, I just want to examine that logic, but I feel like that's going to lead us down a different path.
So anyway, so I get here around May. I worked on a bunch of blockbuster. Most of your kids must have seen them.
I don't have any kids.
Well, okay. Well, John was young enough back in the day. Spy Kids.
Got it.
Spy Kids 2 and 3. I worked on Wolverine, the origin, the one that nobody likes. I worked on a couple of horror movies. I worked on a few Christian movies. All along the path, I ended up here about 9 years ago. Almost 9 years ago, I ended up here.
Wow, 9
But
years.
you are kind of a staple in the VFX
Yes,
Dallas
yes.
market. So, if you look at some of the other big firms, he's worked at Janimation, Real
Real
Effects.
Effects.
And So
Maybe we
he's
should
well
have
known in the
had
industry.
John, give your resume.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
I'm just kidding. John is one of 2 trained architects in the Media Lab. The other one is Jason. What up, Jason? But none of us would be here were it not for John starting the Media Lab. So I think I'd like to kind of re-rack and go back to the beginning. And, John, you went to school to become an architect. You were, that was the dream. You came out of school. Got your first job. Well, your first job wasn't at Corgan.
It was here, yeah.
It was always was at Corgan.
I did.
Okay, so you got your first job here at Corgan, and within a year, is that right, or 2 years?
Within the first 2 years.
Within the first 2 years, you're doing something that is sure related to architecture. I mean, but it's more that you just happen to work in an architecture firm. So at what point did you, was there a clear path where you saw okay, this is what I'm going to do, and we're going to be here 25 years later telling really bad jokes on this panel discussion?
Exactly. So in high school, I got a chance to take some radio and television classes and loved those, right? This is like reel-to-reel tape, so very little technology, but it was a blast, right? But I was good at, you hear this from 90% of the architects, I was good at math and I was good at art, so everybody said, hey, you should be an architect. And I got a chance to do an internship in high school through the school district, so I was working at RTKL as an intern at the time, and so, the movies make architecture sound pretty freaking awesome, right? Yeah. I mean, that's why we're all here.
Yeah, the movies don't have it right.
Yeah. So went to school, loved architecture, really loved the theory behind architecture. So our school was split, and I don't know if they still struggle with this, but they didn't really have an identity to know, do we want to be teaching practical architecture, meaning graduating people that, the second they graduate, they know how to build buildings and do construction documents and blah, 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 and boring stuff, but important stuff to being an architect? Or do we want to teach people how to think, which is kind of the side that I felt like I was on, and theory-based. So I was really passionate about architecture in school and what buildings can do and what they can be. For me, it was always I designed a museum, and the museum was telling a story, right? So I was a storyteller then, but my medium for storytelling was architecture instead of movies, videos, imagery, and things like that. And so when I graduated, and I also, in fairness, I could take a B design and present the hell out of it and get an A in design class, right? So both in the presentation and the visual presentation, I could take something that was okay and make it
Not that you ever had
look really shiny
okay
and
designs.
Shiny
and
and
they were
good.
all A designs.
No, I can live with they were B designs, but I got an A out of them.
It's all about the art of
It's
negotiation.
sales.
Yeah.
You just got to convince everybody that it really is as good as you think it is.
No one knows that you argued for that A. They just know you have the A.
Yeah. So that was a natural thing. And I think even when I came here, so I interviewed at school. I was the last person. So there was a couple of people that had graduated prior that were really well respected at the school, and they were here. And so Corgan had a great reputation because of that. So all the top designers were interviewing at Corgan, and literally I was the last interview of the day. And at that time there was no HR department, right? So they literally went down the list to call and offer positions. And so I hadn't gotten a call. I was the last on the list. And I knew the guy that was here. And so I just came up and said, hey, let's go to lunch. And I brought my portfolio, and when I showed up, somebody was walking out doing interviews, and he's like, I'll interview you now. And so I just did an interview on the spot. But I think, again, the presentation and the visuals of stuff, they immediately saw that, hey, we could really use this to kind of enhance our ability to kind of our visuals and our story. We didn't call it story then, but that's really what we were doing. And so it ended up being a natural progression, just changing the medium from architecture to. That was really long, but
So that's okay.
It took 7 years to do it, so you got it in 3 minutes.
Well, but I want to ask another question concerning that, and then bring these two knuckleheads in, and I guess hear what they have to say. So where was the point in? I mean, obviously, so you've gone to school to become an architect. 2 years in, you start the MediaLab, and then. And then you start down that path.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point that you realized, okay, this is the thing that I'm here to do. And it's storytelling. It's not about architecture anymore. It's about, like, we're telling a story through an image, through an animation, and at some point you started doing video as well.
Yeah, I think it evolved naturally. Like, it is very technical, so I do think the people that excel in what we do tend to, like, that math art thing, right? They tend to be able to work both sides of their brain, have the technical skills to figure out the technology side of things, but then also the artistic skills to be able to tell that story. And so, at first it really was a big hurdle and challenge on the technical level to get the computer to do what you want it to do. But it quickly evolved into, like, someone was like, hey, I need 4 renderings of this building. It's like, well, great. Where do you, what are you trying to communicate? And so you're already starting to ask questions.
To tell a story.
That's like, okay, well, I want to show the entry to the building. All right, well, what's special about the entry of the building?
Yeah.
And so you start getting that information, and then you start, even if it's unintentional, you're using that information then to create a story and just even an image. Now you're still fighting the technology at the time. I don't think we fight it as much as we did then.
Well, he doesn't, but.
Well, I don't. You might come over to my desk
here
someday.
to fight the technology.
Yeah, this is why
I do. But to build on that, I think the difference is, and I didn't know this before I worked in an architecture firm, but there's a lot of, most big architecture firms have an architectural visualization group. They don't necessarily have, and I'm not degrading them, but they don't necessarily have a storytelling focused
I agree.
group.
Did you want me to talk some trash about them?
You can name some of the groups.
I do think Corgan is unique in that, I mean, it couldn't have been an easy decision for them, because even still now, right, like, there's not a design team that then hands the building off to a construction team that then hands the building off to CA. It's like an architect takes it from pitch to post, occupancy. And so for them to have a group of people that specialize in anything is out of the norm. And I don't think that's true for other firms. So it was easy for them to have all right, let's just have a 3D group or a VR group or something like that. But I do think what makes us unique is that the story is always forefront in what we try to do.
Well, so let me then open it up to, what are these guys' names? Michael, Brandon, Carmichael.
And William.
And Ludo Michaud.
Yes, that's
I feel like that's a pretty damn good French accent. I can do my English for y'all if you like.
Please don't.
You want me to do my French accent?
I bet it's better than yours.
Okay. Well, because y'all have now, I mean, you, Brandon, you've been here for 10 years. Ludo, you've been here for 9. We just learned that. I've been here for 6.
Glorious years.
I mean, yeah, truly glorious.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people say the real heyday of the MediaLab has been since I arrived in 2016.
I know
15,
at least one
2015.
person that said that.
I do too.
You met Adam's dad?
But, oh no, I thought you were referring to me. He's definitely never said that. But y'all have been here for long enough to where you've had a significant influence on the direction of the MediaLab, and particularly from the storytelling arm. And you come at it from 2 totally different places. Ludo from animation background, working with big Hollywood directors. Like, we're really impressed, Ludo. Working on the biggest of the big stuff when it comes to storytelling. And Brandon comes from more of a commercial background, though some film as well, but more specifically less from the technical side and more from the storytelling side of things. So what is, as y'all came into it, tell me about what it was like when you first got here and how things have evolved, 10 years on down the road.
I'm thinking of, this was not when we first got here. This was like a year or 2 into when we got here, and we were having, there had been kind of a reshuffle, and we were having that meeting over in the United
Corgan East.
It was in Corgan East, and we sat down, and one of the things that I love about the time that we've been here is John has fostered an environment where it's like, all right, don't worry about what's already happened. Let's figure out, like, what is it that we need? What is it that we want it to do? And gave Ludo and I the freedom and the task to go, okay, let's reimagine MediaLab. What was it at that point, 3 or 4.0? And let's think about it, knowing that we want to keep storytelling at the core. What does that look like? And You remember that meeting?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And that
I'd call it an opportunity more than freedom. I didn't feel free to say what I wanted to say, but
Okay, well, let's dig into that. What did you want to say, Ludo?
Anyway, yeah, go ahead and unwrap that for him.
Let's and give it to me in your most colorful language.
you really want to pull something out of me, don't you?
Yeah, I do. That's what I'm here for.
I love that. I mean,
Oh yeah, the opportunity for that was
Yeah.
incredible. It was a great chance, and it's funny you say a year or two in. It had to be a year or two in because I remember my first week or month at the office when suddenly I'm working and everything went black.
He was just trying to fix the server the first year.
That's a good point.
Man, that feels like a
It's like
shot.
we had one version, right? And we had to save over it. So, like, if it didn't work, like, you
was
couldn't go
gone.
back to the last version. It was done.
That feels like a definite shot at IT. I don't.
No, it was just the nature where we were
Hey,
at.
Chuck, that was John that said that, not me. All right, keep going. Sorry.
But yeah, so after a year of fighting with the server and figuring out the server issues and the technical part of it, I think it was a great opportunity to redefine based on our vision, the global, the three at the
Collective,
time,
yeah.
collective vision of what the MediaLab could be next. And it was a great opportunity. I think it was a great chance to open the doors to get to the VR, to the streaming, to all these things, because today we don't have to redesign what we're doing. We're just adding to it, and we keep adding.
we're just making the toolbox bigger.
Exactly, because we're flexible and scalable at this point.
I will say, like, that has been supported all the way through. Again, this sounds a little bit like a plug, but by the C-suite, and particularly Lindsay. I remember vividly her saying, "Bring me stuff to say no to," and she has yet to say. I mean, TheSquare is alive today because it was one of those things that I was like, but she's going to say no to this, but I'm going to go pitch it anyway.
That goes back to the start, right? Like, Jack was supportive of forming the group, and then David was a huge component of the MediaLab. And I mean, I was on his team originally when I was hired, but I got to know him when I was running the lab because we were trying to make it a profit center, right? So I was meeting with him on a pretty regular basis about financials and things like that. And then Bob, who really kind of took a turn of direction, and then we were much more inward focused through his career. And then now our C-suite now is Scott and Steve and Lindsay. Like, it's always like the reason we're successful is because we have those people supporting us to be that way.
I just want it noted that it is annual review time, so I mean, does he say these things? Yes,
This
he
will probably
does.
air
but
after April anyway, so it'll
Not
be
if I
fine.
get it edited really quick.
he's definitely come on, he's pitching for himself here. He said earlier he's always in sales. Well, I do want to because we kind of got further down the line than I wanted to go. So when y'all 10 years ago, when you sat in a room and said, okay, what is the vision for where we're going to go with this? Because that was 15 years into the existence of the lab. So tell me about where you were and at that time where you wanted to go.
Well, I mean, it's taken some big shifts. I can't remember who did we hire first out of you two?
Me.
Okay, so when we hired him,
I was hired originally to do MediaLab was a separate company. I was hired to do original content that was completely.
So our goal then really was,
Architecture.
we were doing commercials on TV, music videos, video game cinematics, like all basically his background sweet spot, right? We were doing all that stuff, some movie effects. And then we did a piece, actually. Brandon came in and took over a piece that had gone on for like 6 months. He finished it in like a week for Fossil. And it was a story that we were telling about ourselves and what the interiors team did with the Fossil headquarters.
So Brandon came in as an employee, or he was a freelancer?
No, he came in as we hired him, and it was like, hey, this has been going on for a while. We need you to like finish this thing
to make it a real story.
And then it was like strap into the jet rocket or whatever the fastest thing is, because that's what we're doing.
That was an interesting turn of phrase there.
Jet rocket.
What did when you came in to work on that? What did you actually get in and edit the thing? What did you do on that?
Yeah, so we picked it up. I think storyboards had already been created, but that was about as far as it had gone. And so
for 6 months, what was going on?
I'm exaggerating, but it was a long time.
Okay.
We have other projects besides that one.
Okay.
Well, and you were more focused on renders and animation at that point. You still did live video, but it wasn't as much as what we do now.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing back then was like we kept things in buckets. So like if you needed a rendering, it was a rendering. If you needed animation, it was 100% animation. If you needed a video, it was 100% video. If it was motion graphics, 100%.
You weren't mixing any media.
Right, and that's
been a
Fossil
big
was
change.
kind of the start of that
Yeah.
shifting. Now,
Yeah.
it's now we're taking live plates and we're doing CG and we're adding motion design and
I don't
wait,
remember
let's-
the last time we did a piece that
was
was
just
not
one
mixed.
thing.
Let's
Yeah.
get back to
Yeah.
get back. So you came in, you had, you strapped into the jet rocket.
Yeah, you got it.
no, he was the jet rocket.
Oh, he was okay. See,
He
your
was the pilot.
metaphor is all over the place here. So you were the pilot of yourself as the jet
As a jet
rocket
rocket,
that you
yeah.
strapped into.
Yeah.
It's breaking apart.
It's getting weird.
It is getting weird. But so what did you
Strap
do
in.
on that project?
So we finished off the storyboards, got everybody to kind of agree that was the way they wanted to go, hired a crew, got it shot, and then that piece at the time
So there was nothing even shot.
At the
Okay.
time I was the video department. At the time there was no editors or anything else, so that piece I edited, and based on that piece hired Luke, Luke, you've got to give a shout out in here somewhere.
Yeah. Did he shoot Fossil with you?
No, that was Justin in June, but worked with some guys that I'd worked at previously, and they made me look awesome. It's all about making that B product look like an A.
Well, so we showed that piece then to Bob and others, and they watched it, and I think you could like see the gears turning in the head, like, oh wait, this is way more valuable than the revenue they're generating doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
This crazy,
Well, 'cause
commercials.
when I got here, I mean, I guess it was roughly 4 years after that, the Fossil video was still talked about. It had been used in a million different interviews, been used in all kinds of stuff, and it was still talked about as kind of the gold standard. And I think y'all had just recently done
Toyota.
What was the
No,
Toyota before
well-
that? It was, right?
Toyota was
No,
after
Toyota
No, it
was
was
after
after
that,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
what up in New York watch company?
Oh, Bolivar.
Bulova.
There you
Yeah.
go.
I
And-
think, but just to put something in there before you get too far down that road, I'll distinctly remember, because it was like within 6 months of me being hired, was when Bob came through and he said, okay, we don't want you guys to focus anymore on outside work. We just want you to focus on us. And that wasn't what I had gotten hired to do. So John and I went to lunch, and he was like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And I was like, and this is absolutely still true today. I absolutely loved the people that I worked with. And in production, either some people
You
you love
even
working
love
with,
me?
and some people you don't. I loved at the time the people I worked
Oh,
with.
okay. So see, that was a shot at me.
Yeah,
I feel like
it was.
Okay.
But then afterwards, I was like, okay, I'll give it 3 months and let's see what happens. And that was 9
Well, as a follow-up, I'd be really curious to hear Bob's take on, because he had to have that conversation with me, right?
Yeah.
And I was the one pushing the direction for us to go out, and I can tell you later why we did that. But I'm sure for him, he was like, I'm going to go in there and ask this guy to stop working on commercials and videos to just work on our stuff. How's he going to react? Is he going to flip the table and and run out the door screaming?
That would have been interesting.
Yeah, that would have
So
been some great video.
he knew me, but he didn't know how I'd react to that. Like he knew, as a group, we enjoyed doing that other stuff, and we still do some of that stuff, and we try to bring it in the architecture store.
Well, so let's get back to that. That evolution question. Like, so when y'all were having that conversation, what was give me the picture of what the vision was 10 years ago?
I think we had just
9 years
finished
ago.
Toyota when we had that conversation. Toyota was the first big one that Ludo and I collaborated on. And
So what? Actually, let me back up real quick. So y'all, Bob, after 6 months after Fossil, Bob comes down and says, "Hey, we want to."
It was probably a lot sooner, but yeah. go
Okay,
ahead.
so John just uses 6 months as a crutch, as a placeholder, apparently. So Bob
Everything's
comes
6
down,
months.
realizes the value of it, and says, "Hey, we want y'all to stop doing
Change
other
your
work."
focus. Yeah.
That's not what you felt like you got hired for at all. And how long after was it that y'all then sat down, the three of y'all sat down and said, okay.
it's probably a year later.
Yeah, because I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I'm not part of those discussions.
Okay, so then a year later when Ludo arrives, y'all sit down and say, what is the vision of this place?
I mean, annual planning has always been part of what we do, right? So it's always
Yeah, but when you say annual planning, everyone falls asleep.
well, then they need to go to better annual planning.
That's
Like
true.
if you're not awake during that stuff, it does determine your future.
If you don't
right?
have bean bags at your annual planning meeting, you're not living.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, I want to know though, like, what was the picture at that time of where we'll be 5 years down the road, 10 years out?
I actually don't think it's that different from what
Yeah,
it is now.
I mean, even from like day one, like it's been about telling stories, and then, you know, luckily we work for a firm that helps support the purchasing of the tools to let us do that. I mean, if everyone that's watching this could see what we actually see, I mean, it's impressive.
I think where we wanted to
behind the camera.
Yeah,
I think, Ludo, tell me if you agree with this. I think where we wanted to go is where we are. How we got there may be a little different from what we expected.
Yeah.
I think we were wanting to have more of a focus on external work. I mean, I remember at one of our planning meetings, we were like, well, we want to get something submitted, you know, for Emmys and Oscars.
Yeah.
And we aren't getting the outside. We don't have the. We still have outside clients, but we're not having the outside focus. We're having the focus on creating wow moments for Corgan. But we've got 2 documentaries in the work. We've got this podcast. We've got a bunch of things that we had always wanted to do. We're just doing them in a different way than we expected.
When I think our structure changed too. That came out of that meeting.
Yeah, that's
it wasn't so much a vision. The vision was the same as like, okay, if we're going to achieve this vision and we're going to do it successfully, like where are the bottlenecks, what's not working? And so we really created a whole new structure, created your job, separated that, got me out of the day-to-day production aspects, except for where we think it'll be most beneficial. And so that had a big impact in our.
That was probably the single best thing we did. Getting
Was
John
just
out of the
ripping
day-to-day
John
production.
out of the day-to-day. Because
I got a lot more sleep after we did that.
the bottlenecks and challenge areas all happen to be in the day.
Now Ludo and I are
Okay,
the challenges and the bottlenecks.
just pushed it down the road.
Well, you know what? That's true. I can actually speak to that from my experience. That
There's
y'all
your
are
bottleneck.
the bottlenecks
Exactly.
and the challenge areas.
But see, there's 2 instead of 1.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's
that
better.
really spreads the load. So Brandon, I've got to ask you then, why, if you came here thinking this is going to be commercial job, I'm
Are
assuming
you trying
were
to get
coming
rid of
here
them, or are
to-
you like?
Hey,
Hey, there's something I need to tell you guys.
there's a there's a
It might not
method
be a
to my
good time,
madness
but-
here,
Oh,
and if you
sorry,
don't
I'll
think
back off.
if you don't think that it ends with Brandon leaving today,
Taking the mic and walking
yeah,
out.
you're wrong.
My mic.
No, but having a certain vision of where you were at in your career and where you thought you were going when you came here, and then you're told, hey, you're going to do videos about airports.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say it as though like
No.
But you know
I
what
got
I'm
you.
saying.
I
Like
do.
it's a difference between the commercial world and it's a
You
whole
might have been
different
a
world.
little
It is.
conflicted on your last job anyway, based off of the data
Yeah.
that you got.
When I took an aptitude test, an attitude test. or-
No, it was just a.
Oh boy, you
Like a
failed the attitude
behavioral-
test.
I actually did, and they hired me anyway. I don't know. So really, it's
Said he
on
was
them.
very conflicted at the time.
It's funny. I actually still do. I do a lot of the same things and even more than what I did and where I wanted to be. It's just way less people see it. So, the stuff that we're doing here at the MediaLab, instead of it being something, like the shorts and other things that I did before that premiered to hundreds of people, now it premieres to 12. And it may go away after that. But there's this, I don't know, there's a freedom to it a little bit. I had a good friend that he over a summer he had a group of friends and he was like, "Hey, we're gonna shoot a film and then we're gonna premiere it once and then we're gonna burn the negatives." This was actual film, and that's what they did. And there's this freedom to not. You're still putting out a high quality product. You still want to tell a really compelling and engaging story, but it's about the experience of doing it. And the thing, to answer your original question, the thing that's kept me here for 9-10 years, and I know this sounds a little bit, what's the right word I'm looking for?
Pompous,
Yeah, no.
windbaggy.
It sounds a little
Arrogant?
No, 'cause I wasn't gonna say you.
What's that?
There you
A
go.
little something.
I know this is something that I've heard other companies say this, but it absolutely is this team. Like being able to create with this team is one of the reasons why we have an extremely low turnover rate, is because once people get here, we never let them go. You just want to stay. It's a fun group.
That didn't feel very inviting, I'll tell you.
I mean, I'll give you a great example. Luke's first or second day on the job was a 16-hour flight to Dubai. And Luke's been here 9 years, and for some reason he sticks around. But it absolutely is the people I get to play with.
Luke is awesome, and I will say that the story I have heard, he jumped on that flight to Dubai, sat down in his seat, and did not get up even to use the bathroom once because he had a full entertainment system.
I've never seen anybody
disposal.
exit a plane so quickly once we got to Dubai.
But that's Luke in a nutshell. I think we ought to do an episode that just features Luke and me.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
So, well, I get why you have stayed the long time, and Ludo, we're gonna get back to you. Don't you worry. Why you've stayed 10 years, but what I really want to know is in that moment when John comes to you and says the thing I sold you on isn't going to happen, we're going to do this other thing. Why did you want to stay then?
I just wanted to tell great stories. I really did, and I wanted to do them in new and engaging ways. And I know that sounds a little bit salesy, but that's just what I get the biggest rush when we get to do something and I see it click with people like that. That just amps me up. And now you have to do it in better and bigger and sometimes newer ways, which we get to do with XR and other things. But I just love telling great stories. So if I'm telling it for 10 people or I'm telling it for 10,000 people, it's as long as I'm telling a great story, I'm happy. Was there anything to do with the instantaneous feedback of whether it's you're handing that off to the team that's going to an interview or? Yeah, I will say that's, that we got one thing that I never really got, because we never paid for any kind of market research when we did our shorts and docs. Like the audience either liked it or not, and I never got any one-on-one kind of feedback on it. I definitely get one-on-one feedback. Usually it's good, yeah. But I get input, and I get to work with the people that are presenting it. Like we get to, whether it's for a pitch or it's, we sat down with Toyota to try and do a series because they were trying to get a bunch of their workforce to relocate from LA, and literally sitting with the marketer directing, he's like, they just think everybody rides cows and there's a bunch of fields. And so we got to do this whole pitch in terms of like being able to bring them. They wanted one video. I think we ended up doing like 4 or 5, but we did a VR experience where people were able to take the experience home with Google Cardboard to their houses and share it with their families. It was really focused on the story and not a deliverable. Well,
I think something you see, like, so we get to interview a lot of Corgan's clients too, right? Yeah. And so when you go there and you interview somebody and they literally like Corgan has changed their life, right? Yeah. Like you can see their appreciation when you're interviewing them. They're emotional about it. Like, you're at a good company then, right? So it's like, okay, well, like they're going to let me tell great stories and their clients love them. And it's really easy. I don't know. It's just easy. And there's pieces that I'll go back and watch now that you still like, get a little tear in your eye. Like, we nailed that one. Like, that was good. Yeah,
you always have been a crybaby. Yeah, and to be clear, I mean, this is, I want to find out the history of how we arrived here. Yeah. I'm not trying to talk Brandon out of the building. I have other plans for that. But now I'm gonna swing the guns over to Ludo here.
You got this, Ludo.
And I'd like to clarify one thing. I'm the one called talkative. I think, this is.
I'm sorry, you're called what?
Talkative.
Oh, talkative.
Talkative.
Yeah.
We got that?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good.
Continue.
Well, I'm not. I'm the quiet guy. I don't cuss. I don't.
He's the strong, silent, handsome type.
Yeah. We can put Ludo behind the curtain.
There's a lot of things I could say right now, and frankly, my brain is collapsing on itself because it's just too much. So I'm going to just go past that. So in the industry that we're in, the kind of the peak of that, or at least the perceived peak of it, is Hollywood, is movies, and working on things like Spy Kids or working with a director like Robert Rodriguez is, that's at the top level of the game. And you were doing all that stuff, and you have told me off camera some of those stories in colorful ways. But what made you say, hey, I want to stop working on this huge entertainment stuff and I want to go to work for an architecture firm as a VFX expert? Why Corgan?
Well, I like to think that I got lucky enough along my career to find places that needed help or had good challenges, right?
Did you hear that, Brandon?
I needed a lot of help.
Well, what I mean is when I get to Genimation, when I moved to Genimations because they were in the right place, but they needed some help on the technical side to get them to the next level.
Yeah.
And skip the years and stuff, get to Corgan. When I got here, it was I saw a great vision, I saw a great idea, a great direction, which is something that would lack on other places a lot. The vision, which I needed a vision to be able to go forward, and really the first thing that happened to me within the first month was this place had challenge written all over it.
And that's even aside from the server.
that is a shot. I don't know who that's a shot at, but that is a shot.
It was written in French, so it was easy for him to read.
Got it. Okay. That's a shot. That's a shot right back.
Both you two, I think, were recruited by the same person,
Yes,
Fran,
Fran.
that you had a tremendous amount of respect for.
Absolutely.
So I'm guessing it's not a huge leap. Like, I came here because I respected somebody in my upper class, right? And they came here. So while I don't know, it's probably less of a risk, right? When you're like, okay, this person I have respect for works there and says, hey, you should come work here and it's a great place. Then
it does help a lot.
Yeah.
But like I said, within the first month, challenge was written all over this place. So it kind of
first project.
The first
Who was the most challenging?
No, I think
it was
the
technical.
technical.
Okay.
Server.
I don't think
The servers.
The people
So-
challenge came a little later. It's really the machine thing
All right.
that just.
So our working list so far is Chuck Blackford. And then I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out there because I know you don't want to say it, but does it rhyme with Carmichael?
Carmichael.
Well, no, but so take it back to, then you don't have to name names of any of the companies that you've already named of who you worked for where you didn't see a vision. What did you not see there, and what did you see here that
it
made
was
you
a
see?
lack. In some places, it was lack thereof, and I'm not going to name drop.
Yeah, I'm not
I
asking
think it really was just a lack of vision. There was no, like, when you say where are we 5 years from now, there was no answer.
There was a lot of hope.
Well, they may have a vision, but weren't able to execute that.
Well,
we've
I
had
think-
conversations, right, where it's like
yeah.
took on a job that they shouldn't have taken on.
Exactly.
Because they had a
It's
vision that they wanted to be here, but they didn't
But
really
they
know
didn't
how to
underst-
get there.
They didn't understand what it cost to be there in the
Yeah.
first place. And I think it was a great place to be at the MediaLab at the time because.
Well, hang on before we jump to that. When you sat down with John for the first time, what was the vision that he articulated to you that you clung to?
He talked about the storytelling. It was one thing at that lunch. I remember Brendan was there, a friend was there. Was there anybody else?
I don't think so. I think it was just us.
And they sat down with me and they really talked about what the storytelling is part, and we're not just visualization. We're not just doing visualization. We're also trying to tell stories about things. And they had they were still working on Fossil, I think, at the time, or close to being finished or whatever. But they were on the Fossil piece, and really it was just like they asked me, "What do you want to do?" I was like, "Well, I just want to have fun and just do something that I can appreciate." And I think on the appreciative part, knowing that your name was on the silver screen a few times is rewarding, but the cost of it is
It doesn't carry you very far.
That takes the reward pretty much out of it, right?
Wait till it goes from the screen to television. It zips by so fast.
Well, people can skip it now, right?
In a little box.
Yeah, but with Corgan, I think to me, to know when I see somebody picking up the renders or picking up an animation piece or whatever, whether it goes to 12 or 600 people or 1,000, whatever it is, knowing that the person that takes that piece and you see in their face that they're like, oh, okay, now I have a way to tell what I've been envisioning this whole time, and I have something that will support what I'm trying to say to these people, and it feels to me that's the biggest reward really at the end of the day. It's to see people like, oh heck yeah, this is gonna help us get where we want with these people or whoever it is.
Yeah.
We can express our ideas better, we can express our story better, or whatever it is, because we focus on that, right? That's really our focus, and whether it's technically or not. I do miss exploding building. I will tell you right now, that's one thing I do miss.
We're going to get you that job where we get to explode a building.
Yeah.
That said, I mean, everything else I do, the challenge is how fast can I get something that used to take so long that now I need to figure out a way to do it in 15 minutes now, right? So it's always been a constant challenge. Now, how can I do it in real time? Now we're in the real time stage where the VR, the virtual reality, where how do you put people in there and it looks so good that you're like, oh my God, am I really there or not, right?
All of that, and he still ends up getting out. How many renders did we do last year? 300-400?
Oh, more than that.
Yeah, we were close to averaging 2 a day.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is so. All of the technical and creative expertise to make some of these stories come to life, in addition to still doing some of the stuff that you just have to do as part of an architecture firm, which is the renders. I mean, it's a ridiculous amount of work.
So I know we're going long here, but I mean, it's probably due to the brilliance of my hosting.
Yep.
It's
Yeah,
been a
for sure.
really
Amazing question.
just engrossing conversation, and it's going to continue. Y'all thought I was about to wrap it up, and I'm not. So this is sort of, I mean, this makes me cringe because I feel like it's about the most pompous thing, you can say when you get into this business, where you don't label yourself a filmmaker or an artist, which are kind of pompous enough, depending upon from whom that statement is coming. But I think the parlance of our time is to wrap it up in, I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
And Stephen King doesn't refer to himself as a storyteller, and he's one of the most prolific storytellers of our time. And without, belaboring the point any further, storytelling is an important part of how we relate to each other in a community, in a city, in a state, in a country. It's important in how we communicate our vision for a building. In this case, it's important about how we communicate a vision for our future and, politics, or just in culture in our country. So what are we striving for at the lab? Like, what do we want to do as storytellers?
Free alcohol.
Okay, well, that sums it up pretty quickly and doesn't paint a very good picture.
No, I think, the core for me, and so I was at a Simon Sinek lecture. He's the guy that starts with why. If you haven't seen it, look it up, watch it.
I will not.
We will put it in the description below.
But I was sitting
No,
in his lecture, which was very similar to the video I'd already previously watched, and I was thinking, okay, what is it about architecture that's very similar to what I do in videos and animation? And for me, it came down to a couple of things: is education, or educate and inspire. So, again, I think if we can inform people, they'll make better decisions. If we can inspire them, they're actually going to take some action. So, most of the stuff that we do tries to do that, right? So even in architecture, the action may be as simple as getting approval on a design, right? And you're informing them and you're giving them all the information of this is what the building's really going to look like. In architecture, we don't want to surprise, walk in the building when it's done and be like, I didn't know that was going to look like this.
Isn't it
Not
awesome
anymore.
that there's a hole in that wall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was going to be an escalator there. We did a video actually for Terminal D, and we came through security. There was an escalator right in your view, and they saw it and they were like,
We don't want an escalator
They
there.
were like, everyone was under the impression they were going to be able to see the gates from security, right? So you would know where you're going, which is a line of sight wayfinding.
This is not a video. This is an animation you did
Correct.
prior to.
Yeah,
Okay,
prior
I
to.
want to clarify that.
And they saw it and they were like, we hate it.
Yeah.
Right? We got to move that escalator. And so, great.
It's a good thing we did the animation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it saved time and money and was a better product for it. So in that case, it was, educating, and we inspired somebody to take action, which was move the escalator. So it can be something simple like that, but it can be bigger, more powerful things. And so, when we get to tell the bigger stories, if we get to work with a company, that has a mission statement that's, bigger and beyond themselves, those are the things that generally, really excite us, or excite me. And then hiring like-minded people that have very similar beliefs in that storytelling.
Yeah.
It's a responsibility too. I totally agree with you that the term storyteller is kind of overused, but I bet in your example, Stephen King would be the first to admit that telling a really compelling, engaging story is not easy. There are levels
And
to
I
it.
want to be real quick to say I've never met or spoken to Stephen King. Maybe he does call himself a storyteller.
At least a writer.
But he would be okay in doing so because he's so prolific.
Stephen, if you are watching this podcast and want to have a conversation with us, we're happy to do that.
Happy to.
Does it make you ill that I write on my jury selection, my occupation as storyteller?
It makes me cringe. Yes, I feel instantly nauseous right now.
Good. Perfect.
I don't know how to say this without sounding pompous, but I'll just say it. We were at a meeting in Phoenix for the beginning of a project, and we were just there to be available to help with just some simple production needs. We were not leading any creative on it, and it was an all-day meeting, and it became very clear very quickly that the firm that they had hired to do the creative on the project, in terms of the presentation and whatnot, had very much a what mindset, to use the Simon Sinek golden circle, instead of the why mindset. They were just all about getting to whatever the deliverable is and how do we get to that. And when we started asking the why questions, this is in a room of what, 20, do you remember the meeting I'm talking about?
I don't know the project yet, but I don't like where it's going.
Yeah, there was a room of like 25, 30 people.
I have a guess.
And all of a sudden, they were like, yeah, why? I felt bad for them because we kind of started asking questions that I don't think they really wanted to ask. But asking that why and letting that be the foundation of each story, and then taking that responsibility serious. It doesn't matter if it's, a data center video with motion graphics and animation and drone footage, or an XR experience, or a Toyota animation, or a TikTok video. Each medium has different ways of telling a compelling story.
Am TikTok?
Each medium has different ways of telling a compelling story, but the responsibility is the same. And it either you engage and get people's, like you said, that you educate and inspire, or you don't. And that's a big responsibility.
I think it's a really interesting. It's really interesting to think about it in that way. That it doesn't matter what story you're telling, that is going to evoke some sort of response. And it's almost physics, in the sense of, for each action, help me out here, Ludo, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Yes, that's
you
correct.
nailed it. Good
And
job.
awesome, man. I read A Brief History of Time, but I didn't understand any of it. And particularly, and I don't know how far into the weeds we want to get philosophically here, but it's interesting to talk about that in our time. We're in the midst of a global pandemic, and we can stay out of the politics of all of it, but I think it's interesting to talk about it from the standpoint of the responsibility of person telling story, whether you're news or whether you're the MediaLab, or take your pick, Robert Rodriguez, whatever, the responsibility of the outcome of what you say. And I think a lot of people, feel like what they have to say is very important.
Yes.
Maybe too many of us feel that way. But what is the outcome of those things that people are screaming from the rooftops? And to that end, I would say another, I think, overused word is to inspire. We want to inspire some sort of action, and we have to be very careful about the actions which we inspire.
It's overused because you basically tell it to us every single day that we've worked here, John.
Yeah.
Well,
It is funny. Like you notice a word way more once you kind of identify with it, and for sure it seems to have gotten more and more and more popular over the years. Even though,
for sure, this certainly
I feel
predates
like
my time at
I
Corgan.
defined the word.
Okay, well, that feels really
What was the word you were looking for?
And really, there wasn't anything.
pompous and
before you were
arrogant
here.
are two words that do come to mind.
The other word is connote. Inside baseball there. It was just for Pamela.
You're still not using it right. You're still so far from using it right. But the idea, one of the things we talked about coming into the show here was that informed people make better decisions. And so I'm just going to throw this out there and let y'all wrestle for the mic. I feel like it's going to be more of a challenge to get one of you to speak first, but what is the responsibility? Like, I mean, which, in this day of fungible truth, like is there a right way to tell a story?
I've done a lot of talking. I have an answer, but I don't want to.
Let's you know what? Let's let the Canadian speak first, Ludo.
I don't know that it's the right way. I think it's the
He's
way
American.
You know what? He is an American citizen, and we all celebrated that.
Yeah.
It's not so much as a right way as a way that everybody can connect to, right? So I like to say that when I do my pipeline, there's no such thing as a wrong way. As long as everybody goes that way, then it becomes the right way.
So wait, when you started, we weren't doing it the wrong way?
No, not at all. It was an interesting.
Okay, let's mark that down.
You leading them into that one.
That's what we call precedence.
There's a roundabout way.
Yeah, that was an interesting way. Interesting is a key word. But inspire is very important, and I'm not going to use that right now. But I think you have to understand what a building is and what it does. Especially today, it's very important to understand what we do, and I think it's not some. What does it represent? It represents safety, it represents memories, and many other things. But those are probably the two big things you can think of when you think of a building. It's safe. It's a roof over your head. It's safety. It's memories. Things are going to happen here that people will remember forever, or forget tomorrow, whatever. But if you can get people to connect to this, I think that's where the keywords come in, and that's where the emotion comes in, or it doesn't come in, and so on and so forth. I think that, to me, is what gets me hooked to this stuff, is to be able to bring that and help people approach these subjects and understand what they're about to get into, and really want to go there because they think it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way to say it. Do y'all want to add on to that?
We do and don't get to choose the stories we tell, but I do think if there was a story that we were telling that we didn't believe in, we just wouldn't. We would.
Somehow they end up magically at the bottom of the list.
Well, they just wouldn't do it, right? So I mean, we're telling stories and about products that we believe in.
I do think that there's. I mean, not to use the word responsible again, but I think that there's the responsibility. I would disagree. I think there is a wrong way to tell a story, and there is a right way. The right way isn't a method. And it's not that you can't tell a story different ways and they would all be the right way, but the wrong way to do it is to not correctly handle the story, to not be faithful to the story, to interject your own opinion.
To be grossly manipulative in one direction or another.
And if you are, correctly and responsibly handling that story, and you let that story speak for itself, you let it be something that can inspire but engage and potentially change people's behavior or motivate them to behavior, then I think that was the right way to tell that story.
Well, and to be clear, because of the way you cringed when you said inspire,
inspirations. Ugh.
Well, I think it's to inspire someone to any form of action, I think is a noble goal. I just think the ubiquity of the term these days is. It's just overused.
Well, I think there's a wide range, right? Like sometimes we want to inspire someone to approve a design, right?
We don't need to inspire people to eat French fries. Like that's not, that's just.
There's a lot of commercials that try to do that.
That's just a transaction, But there is I would say, to defend what we do here, that to the goal of telling the story of a space, and to motivate or inspire, action accordingly, I think is a lofty goal in terms of being storytellers. So we're getting to the
middle.
If you think we're halfway through this thing, you are sorely mistaken.
You should someone turn the camera around on the cameraman. He just rolled his eyes.
He knew what he was getting into.
None of us knew what we were getting into.
No, I want to take us into the home stretch here and let us know about tell us what your favorite projects have been working at Corgan. Or actually, you know what? Give me your favorite Corgan project and give me your favorite non-Corgan project. From your former lives.
So 7 years working at Eckerd's.
I'll give you some architectural. When y'all did stuff that was non-architectural,
Yeah. So we got the opportunity to do the AICP Awards. It was literally just the sponsor reel, but it's a big deal. It's an honor to get to do the sponsor reel, and if you screw it up,
Association of Independent Commercial Producers.
Yeah, and if you screw it up, every single post-production,
No.
production facility, creative agency in the
It's a little
Texas region,
intimidating.
not just
Yeah.
Dallas, will see it.
Yeah.
So, of course, we were young and naive when we took it on, and but it's a piece I'm still really proud of. I think it's on one of our first things ever posted on Vimeo. And
Were there any late nights on that project, or was it
Yeah,
pretty much
well,
9 to 5?
we went down to the hill country to film it, and it rained for like 3 days straight. And so it was like, guess what? It's going to have a somber mood to it. And so we just evolved the creative with it. So that one, there's so many that we did really great creative stuff. We did work for Army Air Force Exchange Services, where we got to brand their in-store television. So basically they're bigger than Walmart. So tons of people got to see that work. We did some really cool stuff for a greeting cards company that's still some of our best like animation, like character animation and concept design work. On the architectural side, like super proud of Fossil. The pitch video for Toyota. We talk about Toyota, but Toyota was like, it was like three years long or something.
Yeah.
So there was the pitch, which part of what we have to do is prove our worth. Like I don't want to say every year, but there is a piece of that like, Corgan pays a lot of money for us. So what's the value? What's the end return? That was a great example of it, right? We produced this video to show our excitement about doing Toyota's headquarters, and it made an impact in the interview, and they said it made an impact. So I was like, can you put that in writing so we can just show it to them every
Just
now and then?
frame it?
Yeah. We got to do that for another, we probably can't say, large electronics company this year. It definitely had an impact on that interview.
I actually don't know what you're referring to, but please
That's good.
continue.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Confidential project.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So those are really good. And then on the VFX side for me, you have some of that airport work where you really get to like dive in. So DFW, we've done some really incredible stuff with green screen and visual effects and things like that. And then Sacramento, which really was like this great long project that we did a lot of versions for. So that's one of each, right?
It felt like more, but that's okay.
Ludo, go ahead.
Oh, the list goes on, right? I personally think my first Spike in movies was probably one of my most memorable, like, prideful moment. Is that a word?
Yeah, sure.
One of the things you're
moment.
most proud of.
Proud of in my career.
How
I think-
how long did you work on that?
Oh God, I don't want to talk about that part.
Okay.
In hours, days, or
There was a lot of nights and
Cut to
and weekends on
Brandon.
that one. I think one of my another part. We keep talking about Robert, but I'd like to bring the fact that I did get the chance to work with director of photography like David Dreyer that directed the photography on Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And I had the chance to work with this guy for 3 months on, and just getting the stuff out of his brain, or shaking the hand of Ray Harryhausen. I mean, these guys are those are my inspiration right at the end of the day, and that's the cool thing that I got to do so far. And here, I think the other piece of it, the other AICP piece that we did
it 2 years.
And the second one, I think that's probably my most fun one. This is where I had the chance to really collaborate with Brendan and work on collaborating and supporting each other with our medium, right? You had the great story out of it. I had the effects, I think, came out good.
I mean, literally every shot, we were like, okay, this is kind of what I was thinking a little bit, because there were VFX elements in every shot. And he goes, well, this is what I'm thinking. How do we make this work?
Well,
And it
there was
great.
no story without the VFX. It would have just been
100%.
like, oh, that's a cool shot of a plane.
Yeah,
Or something,
yeah. But that would be probably today my here would be one of my most proud moments.
So, Brandon, let's see if you can name drop better than Ludo.
Well, I did want to ask him one.
Mark Bezos?
Are you gonna list Amazon?
Yeah.
Because I was gonna ask him how he felt about us trying to physically build
that
a
was-
rig for 24 hours.
Oh,
Hold
my
on,
God,
hold
no,
on,
no,
hold
no,
on,
no,
hold
no,
on,
no,
hold
no,
on.
The whole story is now gone.
I'm
nothing
gonna
to
go ahead and jump in on that one. I remember, because I was not the producer on that. That was my compadre, my compatriot, Mark, who's
which is
behind
probably why it
camera
went
right
so
now.
successful that project.
Yeah, well, except for the building of that sign. And I remember walking in the room when this was proposed, and I think even saying out loud, "Don't do that."
Yeah, but you say that a lot.
I was
and
not
we've
the
blown right
producer.
Well,
past
first
it.
off, what percentage of the time do we listen?
Yeah.
Well, listen to me or period. It's very low. But I remember then walking back into the room while y'all were constructing it and witnessing the disaster take place and just thinking sometimes like what your parents must have felt like, well, they're going to have to
They'll
learn one
figure
way
it
or
out.
another. All right. Sorry, Brandon.
I think two projects that I'm really proud of outside of Corgan. One was Divide that we shot. It's funny. Once I started working
Still
at
haven't
Corgan,
seen it.
Yeah, I know. It's in the edit. Once I started working at Corgan, I hate doing this while you're sitting right next to me because it really makes you look good. But
You want me to just lean back and you can
Like,
look in Ludo's
I
eyes?
go, yeah. So I go to John. I was like, John, I need to take a week off and I'm going to go to Colorado and shoot this. And he's like, well, that sounds awesome. He's like, do you want me to come cook for you? Do you want Amber and I to come cook for you? And I was like,
Or PA or anything.
yeah.
Just
and I was like, yeah,
whatever.
if you want to. He ends up
Yeah,
PAing.
I would never do that. I want to
Yeah,
be clear about that.
I would never expect that of you.
I got a drone credit in there
you
somewhere.
got, he
I think, yeah.
PA'd, he got an aerial DP credit, and they cooked incredible meals for
Oh,
the
that wasn't
for
me.
the
That was my
crew.
wife.
But that's something I'm really proud of that's being wrapped up. And then the other thing that I'm really excited about that hasn't even been shot yet is a documentary that we're looking at doing on, I don't know how much I want to get into that. There was
Well, you were doing one for
this-
families that were really struggling with the One Shot to Live, which
yeah.
was super cool.
there's kids with rare diseases that are genetic rare diseases, and they can basically get this one shot, and it either works or it doesn't, and they can wait 3 or 4 years to get this shot, and it costs millions of dollars, and it's cutting edge technology, but it's really
Basically, if he says, I have an idea and I'm going to do this, you just go like, yeah, cool. What can I do?
but those kids.
Wait, who says yeah, cool? What can
I say that.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
100%.
Because again, I am out.
Yeah, no, we know.
I PA'd on some crazy zombie films for
Yeah.
him.
No.
Yeah, you've ridden
Yeah.
the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Here at Corgan, one that definitely stands out for me, aside from Fossil, is Amazon, because that one, it was an extreme, unlike a lot of these projects, it was an extremely short project. We had basically 2 weeks, and there was a company that was kind of managing. It was a firm that was kind of managing the overall.
Well, I think go
DFW
back even
response.
before, right? Like once we knew that Amazon was building a new HQ2, right? And we knew that Dallas was an area. We said we want to do the video for Dallas, right?
Yeah.
Like there's how many ad agencies were probably lining up and
Yeah.
production studios and like, but we were just like, hey, let's figure out how we get to do this. So we went to our CEO suite and they were connected
Made
in.
some phone calls.
Yeah, and then they were like, hey, we showed them our reel and they're like, all right, let's do this. And then
Yeah.
And then we worked with this firm, and they were really managing more of the print side. And so, because originally we were like, well, we'll just do kind of the production side, but we just want to be a part of this. And then they came and they were like, here's what we're doing on the print side, and we're integrating the use of this ampersand. What do you think? And it gave us the opportunity to really partner with them on the creative and come up with a video that I'm really, really proud of. And then I think that's pretty. I mean, Toyota. It feels like every year we have a creative summit and we go through and we list the top 4 or 5 pieces. And never have I had a year where I was recycling any pieces. Like we're always doing something new and interesting. We got to do 2 years ago. We got to do a 2 booths that were 60 by 20 feet that were this immersive experience. Like I would never get to do a booth that was completely enclosed with sound and audio and
that's
smell
cool,
and
yeah.
video and projection and all these things. And it was incredible.
I've got one I'll throw in there with a company that we can't name, but I can say that our video / animation was presented amongst other companies that were given the exact same assignment, and it's one that was premiered in front of, I mean, physically thousands of people.
Yeah.
And online, broadcast online at the same time. And it was, and this isn't us just being proud parents, what we had created was far
head and
superior
shoulders, yeah.
to what everyone else had created, and the company came to us afterwards and told us as much. And I think that's a pretty fun thing to.
I love when we
to
talk
be
in
able to lay
code because I
claim
can't
for.
figure out yet what project you're
Yeah,
talking about.
I'll tell you later, man. Let's we'll do that off camera.
It'll be down here at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah. Smash that like button. But I feel like we've got a lot more to cover, but I'm getting the wrap it up sign over here from Luke because he is ready to go. So I'll just say that was nowhere near the disaster I thought it was going to be. After spending a little bit more time talking to y'all, I feel like at your next parole hearing, I'll be a relatively positive witness.
Wow, that went better than I thought it did.
Yeah, and maybe it is okay that y'all are walking around free in society.
It's true.
I'm not ready to say it is 100% okay, but maybe it is.
What do you say in 10 years if you're still here and we're still here?
Oh, you're going to fire me long before we hit another 10 years. I mean, if it doesn't come to blows before we shut off the cameras. Well, thank you for joining us on this week's episode of TheSquare. We will see you again next time when it will be a far, vastly inferior host that takes up this seat again. Thanks.